I thought these two were co-chairs. Are you,
I was co-chair for 3 months.
Oh, is it over
We're
now?
doing 3 month shifts.
Oh, and now it's finished.
Van's been doing it for.
He has one more.
Well, I know he was doing it last time.
You gotta get it together.
I was out of state, and I think that was when that all happened. I'm going, what?
And I went out of seat and he picked up the ball.
Yeah,
So
good.
He's got the ball one more time.
Perfect.
Then I don't know where the ball's going.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Hunsaker, the floor is yours. Let me go ahead and make some copies and I'll let you run through.
Okay. So I'll open the Philomath Inclusivity Ad Hoc Committee meeting for July 25th. Welcome, everybody. Could we have a roll call by just going around the table and the online to give us your name?
Jessica Andrade.
Corey Lehman.
Jane Sherwood.
Diane Crocker.
Christopher McMorrin.
Chris Workman.
Rose Bricker.
Nora Smith.
Laura?
Nora.
Nora. Okay. Sorry, Nora. Okay. All right. This first item on the agenda is approval of minutes. We have the May 23rd minutes. In your packet, I believe you had received the suggested changes to it from Jessica. Did everybody notice that?
They got incorporated into their.
Oh, you actually put it in?
Yeah, Ruth did.
Oh, in what came out? Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, they were mostly Scrivener's corrections. The one thing that I wasn't sure about, and that I don't think she, or actually she might have, on page, let's see, May 2023, the second page, line 1, there's a thing that says discussion about number 7 possibly include strives to be, but that it might actually be what it is. I don't remember.
I did look that up, and it did say that.
That was correct.
We said strives to be, because we changed it.
Cool, thank you. Then never mind, I have nothing.
Is.
Okay.
And we put in strives to be, meaning,
Okay.
Okay,
we're trying at it.
So my name is not spelled Lori, it's Lauri. So I'd
Okay.
like that to be
Correct that.
corrected.
Okay.
Forevermore and going forward.
Sounds good.
Any other additions or changes to the minutes? Is everybody good with them? Everybody online too? Nora, you're fine?
She's frozen.
Okay. All right. And then there is the minutes for June 27th. Same question. So what you had for them, they were also in there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So was there any additions or everybody good with them as presented then? Okay. All right. Okay. So moving on, do we have any urgent business?
Not on my watch.
Nobody? No urgent business? Okay. First item on the business section is updates and announcements. Do you want to do some or?
Yes. Okay. There were two things that I had said that we would cover here, and I don't remember what they are off the top of my head because I don't have my notes with me.
Okay.
One had to do with
the proclamation procedure.
The proclamation procedures. We did not discuss it at our last meeting because we didn't have our documents fully completed and submitted yet to include in the meeting packet for the city council. And then for next month, we're not having our August meeting, or our August meeting isn't until later on in the month. So there won't be an update yet until September. So we'll hear more. Hi, Zena.
Oh.
And so that was that update. Okay. And then what was the other thing?
The DEI resources.
The resource
library thing?
that would be a
Oh,
Christopher
yes.
thing.
So I'm working on that. If I'm remembering correctly, we wanted specifically some resources related to the upcoming, like, months. I don't know the correct term. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, we was discussing whether we could have,
Some options available.
right,
Yeah.
when we're, to go along with our
Yeah.
proclamations.
Right. So I don't believe they have existing ones for that, or at least not that they were able
Ones
to.
we-
Yeah, but we have our next library meeting next week, and so I can request to have those, because I believe Hispanic Heritage Month starts in September, right?
Right.
And so I can have them put something together for us.
Okay.
But
Maybe give them the whole list.
yeah, sure. Okay.
But tell them we'll be talking about it again at the end
Yeah.
of the year and maybe make adjustment, but then we'd give it to
Yeah.
them following that.
I think then just for me to then give them, do we have any preferences as far as like fiction, nonfiction, age groups?
I think a variety would be ideal.
Okay.
I think we had talked about resources more so than fiction,
Right. Okay.
because of the whole, like, not wanting to promote necessarily, like, the book club stuff, but I don't know, has that changed?
No.
I mean, like, have people's minds changed?
Oh.
I guess.
I don't remember that.
I think the only thing is just a lot of their existing reading lists, are a lot are for kids, and a lot are sort of like fiction, but to make a point, if I'm saying that right. Like sort of,
An example.
learning about, a revolution in some country through a historical fiction kind of a thing. But if we want strictly sort of nonfiction, I can request that, I guess, just as long as everyone's fine.
I think that it would be a shame if we did not have fiction. I think that for people of color and for children, it is such a great way to understand the historical past that we have experienced in a less traumatizing way. So growing up here, it was great to be able to experience and understand the narrative, but again, not in a traumatizing way. So I think it's important that we have fiction available, because otherwise it's just overly depressing.
And I personally, I don't have any problem either way. And as I look at it, the idea was that we'd kind of rely on them to choose what's they're gonna produce or have available. So whatever they typically would do is, in my mind, okay with me.
Okay. Yeah, I think those are just kind of the questions they had asked, so I can just be like, we don't care, if that's our answer.
As long as it's truthful. We
Yeah.
talked about historical fiction, which I love to read, and it's based on fact, but because they were not witnesses to the people's speech, they can't
Sure.
quote them, but they give the gist of the conversation, which is teaching the real thing, but it's not exactly
Right.
fiction.
Okay.
Nonfiction.
So that sounds good. I will put in some requests then.
Okay.
I would like to request that it not only be books and that it
Sure.
include other kinds of media.
Media and stuff. Yeah.
Will do.
Yeah, we talked about that as well. Okay. Next
Quick
up.
question.
Oh, yes.
How are we gonna let the public know that these are?
It's going to be on the our website, our web page, and
Our city recorder will be promoting it,
yeah.
Okay, so
like social media,
just letting them know,
etc.
and this is Indigenous People Day or month.
Right.
There will be books at the library you can check out. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Okay. Any other updates or announcements?
I guess I had a question in regards to it being Indigenous Peoples Day and time. Has anyone reached out to, I know that Chaz obviously works with that community.
Mhm.
And for a lot of native people or indigenous people, it's taught through song and through stories, and asking if we can maybe get some of that. I know people are trying to archive it, but actually inviting someone from the tribes to come actually speak, because that's a lot of how that works. I think it would be a really respectful way and a very interesting learning opportunity.
You mean come to our meeting or to the city council?
Come to the library, come to a city council meet, just to be like, we're having, we're opening this up for the exploration of lots of different parts of our community, and part of indigenous culture is to have speakers, to have stories told or music. And I think that would be a really great way. So whether we can have that at the library, or again, connect with one of their archives to just have like, this is the sound of a tribal leader telling the story about,
Okay.
I think it would be great to do something like that.
Agreed.
Could, if we, like you mentioned, Chaz, if we touch bases with him and asked him to talk with folks that he knows within the tribes to see if they would have somebody, would that be, I mean, I guess I'm thinking this might be a little quick to have something actually happen.
Yeah.
But if they had something, and Chaz would know who to call.
So let's.
Yeah, and the library will probably, through the Benton County library system, they probably have access to, they come in like, you get a written copy of the story and an audio copy. So I'm going to guess that if you would just reached out and asked, like, that they probably have some of that material on hand to just be like, hey, here's some of this material. Rose, I'm sorry. See your hand up.
You're fine. Jessica's hand was up before mine, though.
That's all right. Rose, Jessica, for you to go.
Okay, I'm wondering if anyone has a copy of the proposed calendar handy, and is Indigenous Peoples Day month one of those that like were designated as a highlight? Because I love the idea, Zena, and I think that's awesome. I'm wondering if that could be like slid in on that calendar as like, hey, for next year, cool
Right.
thing. And then also the stuff that is already happening, like how Zena was talking about the recordings and the written stuff, seeing that if that like we could start slow this year and then build up to it is what I'm kind of saying.
Okay.
Kind of along those lines, thank you, Rose. A couple things. One, the library already does a Kalapuya series, where they have 3 events each year, or a certain season of the year. And I used to promote that in this committee even, the lectures that they had, and they're recorded, and they are online. We've also had Indigenous people or people talk about the Indigenous culture here in 2021, I think it was. And I agree, like we should have more of that. It's awesome. And also wasn't sure if that would be better discussed as kind of what Rose was saying as part of the topic that we were saying that we want to get to, which is a schedule of additional trainings and educational opportunities, because there's a lot of things that we want to bring to the community for us all to learn, and kind of have, and like Rose said, kind of starting out a bit slower, just in case, since we have like a lot of things on our plate.
We have a lot, and also there's a lot of ideas.
Yes.
So I guess if everybody's okay with that, let's talk about that a little bit more later. But yes, Diane.
Well, first of all, if we're going to do something this year, which I'm taking that we're not going to, because we would have to talk about it and get it going right now in order to be ready by October. It's only 2 months away. Eric Neiman sent an email, which I forwarded to some of you that I had emails for, and he was talking about the Siletz tribe and all that they've done for the community. I have been in contact with them. They have actually given money to our band program in the past. I want to say 20 years ago, maybe, we even had a powwow in one of the gyms, middle school gym, I believe, and to invite something like that, that was a very impressive cultural event.
Yeah. Okay.
But we couldn't just spring
Do
it
that now.
No.
Right. Okay. So moving on for now, and we'll discuss that a bit later. The DEI webpage. Ruth has extended what she had produced before and kind of showing examples of what it could look like. Did anybody have any comments, good or bad, about those?
I liked the color. I liked that it seemed to cover and give places for people to look things up.
I think she made it more Philomathy,
Yeah.
as you suggested.
Yeah, no, I think there's a good, I like the updated photos.
Yeah, I think it's tricky when you're creating a stock,
Right.
and not knowing
Right.
which direction to go,
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think she's done an awesome job.
I really looked at, or as I looked at it, I really thought it was a good job, and she took off from what she initially
Right.
made and kind of examples of what it would look like. Is everybody okay with this if we
To keep going forward.
start? I'd assume this isn't online at the moment.
It's not published.
But
Yes,
we
ma'am.
can view it from that, that link that I put in the agenda item summary. If you type that into your browser, then you can get to it even though it's not published on the Philomath website as a place to find.
Are we okay with it moving ahead and being published? Is that what the term is? Everybody okay with that then?
I think we just need to make sure we come back to it, because I don't want it to be one of those,
Update it
things that,
regularly.
Oh, yeah, I think, maybe we have it as a 5-minute thing on our agenda each month and say, oh, could she do this or that or whatever?
yeah.
Because I don't think it'd be good for us to 10 different people calling her and saying.
Agree.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
agree. But I just want to make sure we don't publish it and then forget about it for 2 years,
Yeah.
But,
No.
Why?
The events would not be updated. That would be a problem.
I just wanted to bring up the question that she asked, which was regarding the community events.
yeah,
She says, I think opportunities to promote events from Corvallis, Benton County, and
Oh,
OSU
yeah.
are all game as being local enough to consider community events. Would the committee agree?
I think so.
Wait, what's the question?
Well,
Where does
a
it say
broader community.
That's part of the community
Oh,
event
there.
section. And just, I'm not quite sure, reading that now, I'm like, is that something, as in like, we provide that information to her? Do you think, Chris?
I can refer that back to her.
Okay.
I think the question is how
Broad.
broad and who's going to send it. I mean, we're going to have 8 people all sending Ruth stuff to say, what about this and this
No,
and
I
this?
think
and
we're not gonna do that, right? We agree.
Yeah.
Who are we going to
Each person
send
is
it
not-
to?
We
Well, I
do
mean,
send it
just-
to Ruth.
It can go directly to Ruth.
Are-
It doesn't have to go through me. It can go to Ruth, but it's still a matter of, I think something needs to come out of this meeting, like, hey, here's the events coming up that we want to ask Ruth to update on the website, and everybody in agreement, and then I can send it to Ruth, or we can send it to Ruth. But what I what will become a time sink is if, again, we've got individuals saying, oh, I didn't know about this event next weekend, I'm going to kick it over to Ruth so she can put it on the website real quick. That's just going to be a spinning hamster wheel that'll never end, right? It'll just go faster and faster and faster until we fall off of it. So I do want to be careful. Definitely want to promote the events, but the reality is how many people are really going to the city's website to look for an event that's happening someplace else. I mean, we can use it to promote, especially things that are like annual type events, I think would be helpful. This event happens in Corvallis every year in April, or that type of stuff is helpful. But I also want to recognize the limited number of people actually going to the City of Philomath's website to look for an event happening in Newport or Corvallis or Lebanon. Right. So
Rose?
Yeah, two things. I'm wondering if you guys weren't aware, the first Pride event in Philomath in 2022, we had an article written about it in the Commuter, the LBCC editorial. I'm wondering if that would be something that we want to, like a visual. I also have pictures. They are edited pictures to protect people's identity, because we didn't ask anybody if we could take pictures, but I do have pictures from both 2022 and the 2023 event. I know that wasn't officially a city-sponsored event, but I did get a lot of support from people involved in the city and involved in the Inclusivity Committee. So I just wanted to offer that up. And then the second thing is when we're looking at the page about references and resources, I thought it might be an opportunity to link to other community organizations and activist pages. I'm thinking like NAACP. I'm thinking, there's a variety of different, even Trauma Informed Oregon might be one. But wondering if that would be a way to community partner what Chris was saying about how trying to encapsulate everybody's, all the different community events that are happening, maybe linking those pages. There would need to be a vetting process, I'm sure. We'd probably want to have like maybe an official, like, we are your partner in this work. We want to put your link on our webpage kind of thing.
That sounds good to me. And I agree, we would want to talk to them first, obviously. Zena?
So I was under the impression that we were going to feature the events that are happening in our community as like really highlight them. So I really like what Rose was saying. I think it's great if we can say we're partnering with these people, here's their information, but really be like, here's what's happening in Philomath, not anywhere else, because that's like another world sometimes to other people. And I think that in creating that calendar, I think it's great that, again, we can have links to other resources, but I really want to know what's happening in the community, and I want to feel like that's a really big part of being inclusive. So and also highlighting how amazing Philomath is, so.
Right. I think that is important. When you link with others, I guess in my mind, trying to emphasize, as you're talking about, Zena, is maybe even just the order of how things are laid out on the web page.
Yeah, like I wouldn't lay out stuff that's happening in Corvallis first. We're a Philomath City Inclusivity Committee, and I'm here for Philomath, even though I live in the no man's land between. And so I always find it when it's frustrating. I'm like, what's happening in Philomath? Oh no, that's happening in Albany. Okay, and just from like the Shipley event that we did, the Veterans Day event, people really want to engage with Philomath and not as, again, just a redheaded stepsister of Corvallis or whatever. And I think we should all take pride in that and really highlight what we're bringing and what we're doing.
Okay, that makes sense. And like I said initially, was this kind of in response to Christopher. I think that it is probably a subject that we kind of just need to have a few minutes each month and draw all these things in, and maybe have a single topic about part of it, and just, like I say, each month. And then, I mean, it's going to be a work in progress no matter what. I mean, we start with this, if everybody's good with it, and then continue working with Ruth to develop it. I think that's the way to go. Is everybody good with that? Okay. All right. Anything else on that? Okay.
Oh, what about the pride stuff? Did you want me to try and give that over to Ruth, or is that something that we want to wait on?
I like to do using the pictures and things you have to highlight the events page. So I'd go ahead and send her what you have, and Ruth's pretty creative. She can put it together on that events page and kind of help promote that.
Yeah, I mean, we announced it, or, you know, we said that was something that we supported, so I don't think it's unreasonable. I guess the issue of people having their picture on there and maybe didn't want to, I mean, I don't know.
She said
They're edited.
So,
They're edited, so you can't recognize.
And there are a lot of photos of people that were willing to be in the photo.
Okay.
People on this committee. And
Okay.
I wanted to just say, too, I think I would love to see some event in the future, since we have Paloma Citizens Academy. I would love there to be an event that is held maybe at the library that's Philomath, and it's like a Philomath getting to know the city, and then you can highlight all the things that we've done, these photos. And I thought that would be a really fun and inclusive way, because not everyone wants to do full Citizens Academy, but I thought it was such a great thing. And I think, like, maybe not now, but like next year or something, we have this event where it's like, hey, Paloma, see what we've been doing. Come meet other people in your community and get to know what Philomath is about and what we've been doing, and our city workers. So I just wanted to throw that out before I forgot.
Okay.
Just really quick, I think I also took a couple photos at Pride this year that I just framed carefully so there aren't any faces in them, so I could send those over too.
Just max for the head.
It's like,
You could have taken a selfie of us and.
no, I didn't want that.
We would have been happy.
So I can send those over. And then just to what Zena was saying, great point. Let's come back to that for the
Future.
our ordinance barriers thing, because that's something Councilor Crocker and I talked about as well. So
okay.
put a pin in that one, because we have more to say.
Well, I made a note of it too for future discussion as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the National Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month. This is the second draft of it. Now, Jessica, the suggestions you had aren't in here, right?
Correct.
Okay, so Jessica had 3 bullets of suggestion to add to this. Did anybody have any objections to those? Yeah.
please tell me where I was supposed to find that. I don't remember receiving anything like that.
It's in the agenda item summary.
In the minutes, as you go down.
And
It's
printed it all
section 4C.
D?
4C. You're in the minutes. You go to
It
the
says,
keep
Like
going.
the
No.
pictures and
okay.
stuff.
4C, the agenda item summary.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
That's okay.
Keep going. Keep
very
going.
confused about where I'm supposed to have known this, because I didn't even see it.
It looks like
And
you,
when did we just got it, like 2 days ago?
No, last Thursday or
It's on-
Friday.
4 days ago?
page 14 of the packet.
Okay, well, we're wasting time. Sorry, but I just.
Oh, wait, yeah,
That's- One more page, go forward,
What's that?
There you go.
No, that's from that's from a
Okay,
No,
different.
nope, that's
that's
not
That's a different
I
month.
see the
It
issue.
looks like you might not have all of the pages.
I printed everything I was sent, but I don't know what I was. Maybe I'm not on somebody's list. I don't
No,
know.
it came, if you got all of the website stuff, then you
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
So, so far, as Diane is reading through that, does anybody have any issues with adding those suggestions that Jessica had?
What, did we get are these the bullets?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she was suggesting adding those to what's here. Is there any objections to that? And then,
Would somebody please read those bullet points?
okay.
Just in case anybody's watching this and you know, it'd be great.
Well, they would have had access to this too, but I'll go ahead and read it real quick. Whereas Latinx culture is tied to Iberian ancestry, and our culture recognizes that Latinx are multiracial and multicultural who can trace their historical roots to Indigenous and African ancestry. And whereas Latinx in Oregon are a diverse mix of first-generation immigrants and longtime residents. And whereas each year the United States observes National Hispanic Heritage Month by celebrating the culture, heritage, and countless contributions of those whose ancestors were indigenous to North America, as well as those who came from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, Central America, and South America. That was the one she was adding to what was there. So are we okay with that?
I have a question.
Yep.
And it's a question coming from a place of ignorance, so I'm really asking for education here. Is Latinx still the preferred term? Because I've heard some pushback
Me
that
too,
is
from the
Latinx now? Is it back to Latino or Latino Latina, or what the correct term is? I just want to be.
Yeah.
Oh.
It is very much an individual specific thing, similar to how some Indigenous people are fine with American Indian and some are not.
Yeah.
And I chose Latinx because I felt like that was the most inclusive, and for me personally, but I didn't want to genderize it by saying Latinos or Latinas.
Oh.
And then Hispanic and Chicano have other kinds of connotations that are, I would think, I personally consider to be less kind, I guess. There's like other kinds of colonial history attached to that.
Okay.
So yeah.
Zena?
Oh, I was just gonna, you know, bring up that same point of like, again, some people prefer to be called, you know, native or indigenous or, so I think that it, yes, Atticus, I know. He wants me to play, that it's always good to.
Uh-oh, we lost you.
Here's what we're trying to write down, and we're just putting this out there, and we, as you said, I'm speaking in ignorance maybe, so this is an opportunity. We're trying to be as respectful as possible and for the community to engage in what they would like to be called. So I really do like what Jessica was saying. I think that is a really wonderful statement.
Okay. Christopher?
I have no personal stake in this, obviously, but the only thing that I think is a little weird to me is if the rest of the proclamation says Hispanic and Latino, and then
we'd switch it on.
And then I guess the other thing is, are we proclaiming Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month, or are we proclaiming Hispanic? Like, because I want some consistency a little bit, I guess, is my only concern.
I only just realized now, like, as you said that the last whereas doesn't say Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month. In which case,
sure.
That would need to, the official title is Hispanic, National Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month.
Right.
In which case, like, I would think we would need to be consistent about that if we were to have that last whereas. But
And then change that to Latinx or?
no, because the United States doesn't recognize it as Latinx. So like, if
Consistent
you
with the
would,
national.
the United States does
Yeah,
recognize that exact name.
So I think what you're saying is that it would be like the proclamation would be written as, what you were saying, and then we go by the nation standard on this at the time for like any other language maybe, and any kind of other. I'm not going to throw the ball, man. You lost it in the field. And I think that again we can take leads from what our nation is when we came up with the inclusivity monthly, thing. And I think that that's also important. And then if you want to have it as our proclamation, what we're saying, that's something different.
Yeah.
Okay, Attica.
As I said last month, most of this is derived from the President Biden's proclamation. So as Jessica was saying, I assume that is based on what the National Heritage Month is. Of course, as Christopher had said also, we should stop saying national because we're not proclaiming it as the national. That's the president's job. So I did take national off of that. Other than I mentioned it in here before, and below, I don't say National Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month. So I think based on, Rose, I did see your hand. Go ahead, Rose.
I thought you were making a great point. I agree with you. I like the idea of us, President Biden can announce national holiday, but Philomath, it's coming from locally grassroots effort of recognizing the importance of it. I agree with you. I was raising my hand because not to get lost in the weeds about the Latinx terminology, but it is the most gender neutral term. Definitely think that's important. Although I have seen it written Latino/A/X to kind of cover all of that. But because the word Latinx, Latino, whichever word we determine to use, is mentioned so many times in the proclamation, I think those slashes might be hard on the eyes, honestly. And maybe Latinx would be all encompassing and trying to kind of get the point across.
Okay. Lori?
Just a point of clarity, we're talking about adding these to draft 2.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Right.
And then making sure that the X is consistent throughout.
Right.
And I think if that's how you feel about it, then we should do that. Because if you have a preference, that's perfect.
That's more than the rest of us have. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm Native American and I have a preference about those words, so it's up to you.
Well, I mean,
I'll certainly respect that.
as I indicated, the X is gender neutral.
Well, I'm just saying, like Chris, though, we have gotten some discussion points from some of the groups we work with who say, that's not, you don't need to.
Oh, you don't need to
specify that.
So,
but
well, for that matter too, whatever we send to the council, they could change it anyway.
Yes, but we don't want them to.
Yeah.
So.
Well, no, I know, I get that.
I just want them to. I just would like it to be consistent throughout.
And I do think it's important that we honor and respect Jessica's point of view in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
And I think it was, it's really well written.
All right.
So just to be clear then, we're going to incorporate, we're happy with the way this is written. We're going to incorporate the 3 whereases that Jessica wrote. Are we going to add and Latino into the 3rd whereas on Jessica's, and then put it all after the final whereas of draft 2? Is that correct? And then take
out national.
No,
Well, I
national-
think, because we're not proclaiming national, this is just saying, whereas the U.S.
I
observes
gotcha.
national, we are now observing Philomath.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
Okay, yep,
am I understanding that right?
I did not suggest a placement because I had no idea where to put it, so
Oh, okay.
that can be wherever people think it would best go.
Okay, that sounds good. So
Where I
that's
had-
a wordsmith thing you can do.
okay. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that either.
But we are changing Latino to Latinx throughout the document.
Except
Correct.
for national, Hispanic, and Latino.
Except for the title.
Because that's not up to us.
Can I give a suggestion? If for me, what I'm reading, what Jessica wrote, it kind of sounds a little more of an introduction,
Right.
giving clarification. I think it should be at the top, the
Okay.
front. of it.
Sounds great. Top. I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
Maybe after the first whereas.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay,
agree.
all right.
Two thumbs up on that.
All right.
I really hadn't even thought of that part of it, so. Okay, great.
Gavel us out, man.
Awesome.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the,
I have
Oh.
another thing for here.
one minute.
Yeah, it wasn't to add, it was,
Oh.
it had to do with, where is it?
Too late.
Sorry, I'm trying to find it. It was right there, here, the first, second, third, fourth one, the fourth whereas.
On draft 2,
Oh,
On draft two.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't have-
about our deepest values.
Yes.
Thank you.
Whereas our deepest values have been informed by the love of family and faith that is at the core of so many Hispanic and Latino communities, or in this case, it would be so many Latinx communities. However much I appreciate that, and that is true for many people, I also hesitate to mention faith and religion in general, and just don't know if it's appropriate for us to include that, whether or not it's true to each individual or what have you. And I would like people's thoughts on that.
I think it's worth keeping in there because I think those are actually core values of those communities. So, I mean, are you worried that someone will say something about, do you want to just take out the faith part or both the love of family?
Probably more the faith aspect, just because I mean.
I think also according to Pew Research, 77% of Latinos in the United States identify as Christian. So I don't have a problem with us saying of so many, like we're not saying everyone, but I don't know. I guess I feel like talking about a spiritual aspect of a culture feels appropriate if it's very broad-based. I mean, I think but I don't know.
As opposed to narrowing
Zena?
in.
Right.
Editing it out.
I would definitely keep it in. I think that when you're talking about faith, it wasn't like you were saying, faith is something else than maybe religion. We're not putting Catholic. We're not putting those kinds of words, faith. And I think like in the Black community, you have to have, a faith, if not even in God or again, a religious, the faith and hope and inspiration to keep going. And that is a part of our core experience. So I think that it's really important to recognize, the faith and the inspiration that helps the Latin and overall the BIPOC community.
Okay, thank you. Diane?
I think that could be solved if we just said, whereas many of our deepest values, that allows people to choose
Good.
their own personal.
Good. Nice.
You said many of?
Whereas many of our deepest values have been informed, so not all of them.
Sure.
And for
Good.
each person, it's different.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, all right. That sound good to you out there? Okay, all right.
Go team.
Anything else? I'm sorry, was trying to rush us along.
No, I think it's good.
Oh, Rose, your
Hi.
hand.
It's hard to see your hand.
It is.
Your background is white and your hand is
It's
white.
white.
So
Yes, it is. On the last whereas, I'm stuck on that word contributes to the Philomath business, education, cultural, and agricultural religious community. I feel like we can do better than contributes. I don't know what is that right word, but I feel like wanted to point that out. If there's any suggestions.
Active participants, active members of our community.
I was thinking like enhances.
Enhances, that's where I was going.
Or is a,
Integral.
yeah, like an integral.
An integral, yeah, an integral part.
Snap. Good job.
Religious community.
Yeah, that's it.
Fabric.
That's very serious.
Whoa, good job.
Texas.
So what was the words?
It doesn't have to be what I said.
Yeah.
Is
No,
integral.
what Chris said.
I said
Integral to the tapestry.
to the fabric of business education.
Yeah, the fabric or tapestry of
Oh,
our
tapestry.
community.
We're just throwing things out there now. I love
That's a lot
it.
to live up to for the next few proclamations.
Hey, that's what it's supposed to be.
We set the bar high.
Yeah.
We're just each one is gonna get progressively more like it's in the West Wing.
Dramatic. That's right.
I made that change based on Chris's comments last month regarding trying to say something, specifically about Philomath. So I'm okay with that.
That's great.
Fabric or tapestry? I'm taking notes here.
Fabric. Oh,
Fabric. I mean, we have so many quilters around. I love the fabric.
Fabric.
Yeah.
You got more quilters than weavers, is what you're saying?
The quilt.
I do both, so I'm not judging. But again, I don't know the numbers, but I would say yes, we have more quilters than weavers.
It's a West Coast thing.
So it seems.
Yeah, I would just say that that's my personal experience and what I've seen here. So I think fabric is nice.
We want to be inclusive of the weavers as well.
Okay, but fabric, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lori wants to go home. So
moving along.
I just haven't had dinner yet.
Getting the minutes right.
Okay.
okay. Recruitment and retention, everyone's favorite.
All right. Now we got, recruitment and retention. You're right. Where's that? How come I have my, I marked it off already. I'm sorry.
We have recruited and
moving on.
retained.
Recruitment and committee member recruitment process. And I made a draft of this and Jessica made some changes to it. And this is what we came up with based on our discussion last meeting.
The one that's here.
Yep.
This draft.
Yep.
I can't remember if I incorporated the thing that I took out, so I apologize if I did not.
I didn't even look, frankly.
You might want to verify that.
Oh, yes,
about
yeah,
the
you
working
did.
committee versus.
Oh, yeah.
It does say working.
Okay, yeah.
Did you want that out?
Let's see, let me read. Well, okay, I had put something else in there. She put it in. That is how she changed it. The discussion that Jessica had was, I was looking at it as a when I think of working committee, that means that in addition to preparing for this meeting, we're also involved in other aspects. It might be putting on an activity or doing extra work outside of this meeting is where I was trying to say something there.
I just pulled up.
So that people, if they look at our rules, if you will, or whatever, they could see it's not just show up for this meeting and you're done. You may be asked to do more. Homework and work on other activities too. It might be, doing next month's proclamation or, whatever it might be. It's not just showing up to this meeting, because there are people, a lot of people can be accustomed to just doing that. And I guess I felt like we needed to make sure people understood we would expect more. Zena?
So I guess we came up with the words earlier to be a contributing member of this committee, and so yeah, a working active committee. It doesn't mean, again, you have to show up to all the events, just to be here and present and willing to, take an active role in the committee. I think that that's important.
I think that's a good idea, contributing member.
Okay. So we recognize that in order to be effective, the committee is, well, would we even say working committee? Or
Rose, what's your idea?
go ahead, Rose.
Much better, Rose.
I was hoping to get clarification. Is this procedures for people who are like officially, like they've applied, they filled out the form, or is this for everybody who is involved in the Inclusivity Committee, like attends?
I think it's
Because go ahead.
It's everyone. This is our reaction to, losing membership. Remember the conversation we had? So we're saying that this is what our own expectations are of one another. Mm-hmm. But it could be seen by individuals who are applying, mm-hmm. so that they can see, okay, what's expected of them.
I'm wondering if a designation should be made, or maybe like a step level of engagement. I think the language that is in place now, unfortunately, might have a result of deterring people who feel like they don't have enough knowledge, they don't have enough time, they don't have enough spoons to do the work, to engage as much as might be implied with the language that's in place now. And I don't know if that's like a spectrum level. Sorry.
No, I think that it would be good to be like, all are welcome. And if you wish to like join the committee, then you become a more active member. I would love to see people jumping in here, to voice their opinions, and they don't, and then if you wish to actually join the committee, all we do is just like we go through and we're like, yay, and you're agreeing to be an active member of this committee, and that, that makes sense.
Okay. Christopher?
I had a separate, just a very small thing.
Oh, not a different subject.
A different subject.
I guess when you were talking about that, Zena, it made me think about myself. I've been involved, but I'm not a member because as developed, the organization allows people to participate fully just like anybody else, mm-hmm. whether you're appointed or not. Does that, what you're talking about, sort of begin to address that in the sense of, the committee could say, Van, you ought to join. You ought to go to the council and ask.
I was just like, do you want to join? Please join us. We'd love to have you.
That sort of a thing. And you may not say that to everybody. I guess that's possible, but I don't know. Does that kind of address what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think obviously everyone is welcome, but okay. If somebody is, and you've been actively involved, then yeah, of course, please come join us, and letting people know that, So if somebody shows up for a few meetings and they're showing really engagement, of course we want them to come and join us and never leave, right? But yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I guess then, but if you say no, because we have asked you to join, and you, maybe it's recent that you have filled out an application and joined. What does that mean if the answer is no? We still want you to actively participate, and we want you to do just what you're doing or more. So.
But I would think that they would not take on more active responsibilities, like, again, hosting the next meeting, making some of these events happen, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Coming up, they're a contributing member, but they don't have to have, they don't have to do that. That's, I think, the people that have signed, the core of us.
I shouldn't have used myself as an example.
No, I think you're the.
I'm
It's perfect.
co-chair in the meeting, and I'm still not a member. And Jessica, maybe you have some history that you can talk about it.
So I think just adding to try to address everything, I think adding some clarification to the language about how all are welcome, and that at least for official committee members, the idea is to be an active participant. Like, we need at least some active, like, I guess, hold on, sorry.
We need quorum. So
yeah.
If you're going to join, I would have the expectation that you say yay, nay, or,
Can you wait?
Those kinds of things.
Thank you. Just stating that there is a spectrum, and that you are welcome to participate to whatever you are able to, and then perhaps we should consider having the expectation that official committee members are, have this higher level of expectation to do work outside of the committee. But that would be a discussion that this committee would need to have. And I also just something else some additional language to clarify that there's no real difference between official and unofficial committee members, and that it only has to do with quorum. And then if we decide that we want to have a higher level of participation and responsibility for official committee members, then we can add that as well. I don't know if that kind of gets at what you were talking about.
I guess what my question is, since this is just a really unconventional group, because when do we don't vote in a conventional manner, do we actually require a quorum?
Yes.
But legally, we do.
For what?
So
because it's a city committee.
I know, but so what is what do we base the quorum?
On official committee members.
So if, the city councilors, and then are you an official member? I am. Me too.
Everyone at this table except for Van, Zena, and Nora.
Okay. So that's what my question is. So whatever then, because quorum isn't actually, does that need to be noted in this? Membership and recruitment, because
we could add that.
Well, because isn't that part of this, is that you do need to show up?
Part of the responsibilities,
yeah. Right, so that you can be part of the quorum to make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can definitely add that.
Yeah, okay.
Just for clarity's sake is all. Is all I'm saying.
Rose?
Zena was before me.
Oh, what's she? Zena?
I just would say, like, with the NAACP, we have there's tons of members, and that participate. But then if you're actually a member, then when votes are taken, you do vote. So it's not like that's the only difference, but it's that simple, I think, of being like, you are agreeing to be part of a quorum. Oh, sorry, Rose, go for it.
Okay. Nora?
Well, I've just been with the committee for, I don't know, 4 months, I guess. But anyway, I'm waiting to see where I can plug in. Because it's all so new to me. So I just wanted to say that, but I'm happy, to attend so that there's a quorum.
Okay.
And we love having you here.
Well, thanks.
And that does make you a contributing member, because you are here and you are participating. So, that just because your contribution, this month isn't huge, doesn't mean that you're not contributing.
Yeah.
So.
Just that you're sharing your thoughts on the subject matter, that's always important. Rose?
I think what everyone just said was beautiful, and it was kind of going back to the point I was trying to make of, I think if we're talking about you have to be committed, and this is a working group, it may be an unintentional deterrent. And if we're just trying to get a point across that I'm like, this is an unconventional way of doing things, we just need quorum. We need people to come and attend consistently. And maybe even how Nora was giving the example of, I'm just looking for ways to plug in. There are numerous ways to engage. Just attending is just participation. And then that's why I was kind of trying, like, leveling up engagement. I think either you commit and you're in, or you're not. I think in equity work, that's just not realistic.
Okay. Well, unless there's some other thoughts, Jessica and I will hammer this out based on our conversation here tonight and come back next month with a new draft, if that sounds okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have some other thoughts, but I'll work with you two directly on kind of final, because I do think we want to be clear that it is a city committee.
Right.
We do need a quorum. And, you know, even in your intro here, you state this is for members whom are appointed by the Philomath City Council. So you kind of start this notion that these are appointed members, and there's an expectation if you want to do that level. And so I think that you got to start there, but then you emphasize the committee itself is made up of, you know, members appointed and people that just want to participate. There's a lot of things that can be done, and then you can go through examples of attending meetings or helping with events.
That's a good idea.
Being present. But I do think we need to focus on what those requirements are, because
it's a legal committee.
It is a legal committee. We don't want people to sign up for it and they say, oh, I didn't know this was going to be required of me, and then they back away or they feel guilty because they signed up and now they can't make commitments that they didn't know they were making. So
Yeah,
this
I think
could be helpful and very, very instructive. What are the expectations if you're going to apply to be a
right.
you know, appointed member? And I don't
That seems like a caveat.
wish between appointed members and non-appointed members. I don't think that's the point. The point is there are certain expectations if you're appointed by the council to serve on a committee.
Christopher.
I'm sorry in advance. I feel like I'm getting in the weeds, but just, I guess, as I was thinking this through, and maybe this is more of a Jim question, but just the Government Ethics Commission has a definition of public official, and I guess I'm concerned that we're blurring those lines with the current structure of the committee.
Because we are public officials?
Yes. If you are elected or appointed to an office by a state, county, regional, or city government, you're a public official. If you're an unpaid volunteer for a state, county, regional, city, intergovernmental agency, or special district, you're a public official. So I guess my concern is, like, if someone just shows up to a meeting and puts something on the agenda and offers input, are they now an unpaid volunteer and thus a public official, or are they just a member of the public attending a meeting? And so that just, I feel like, opens us up to, like, are they then required to follow government ethics laws because they're now an unpaid volunteer with the city? Because I feel like if you're adding things to an agenda and, like, steering a meeting, like, I feel like Van is kind of arguably a public official right now in this capacity, even though he's not been appointed to anything. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I just, maybe something
point
to think about. But and then I guess the other part is just, I feel like at some point we might want to put this committee into, if it's not into, like, the city code, because in the city code right now we have, unless otherwise provided for by ordinance, the committees operate as such, and we don't really operate that way. And if we haven't otherwise specified this in ordinance, I feel like we're kind of violating our own ordinance with this committee a little bit. I mean, I don't think it's a huge issue, but just if we're going to keep doing this, I feel like it might be worth, because, like, we have the Park Advisory Board and other committees in our code, but I don't know.
I don't think there's a lot of things that this committee is doing that really does vary from that. I mean, other committees make decisions by consensus all the time.
Right.
We, as a general rule, only work by consensus, so mostly try to work by consensus. But that just means if we don't have consensus, then we circle back around or we bring something back until we do get there. But that's, you know, other committees could make that same decision that we're going to get everybody on board or we're not going to move forward. That's all fine. I do think that volunteers can serve as volunteers in leadership positions and not be considered appointed officials or whatnot. So I think we're getting a lot of that. This document's not going to really have any legal standing on anything anyway.
Yeah.
So my concern with this committee has always been on the governance side of it, of making sure that we do have and the safety net is we have 3 city council members appointed to this committee, right? So at the end of the day, you have 3 elected people and their attendance seems to be pretty good and they're most integrated. One of them is the co-chair, so anything that the volunteer chairperson, whether they're appointed or not, they're coordinating with an elected official to lead stuff. So, we've kind of put some safety things in place to make sure that we're not just operating as a completely independent committee that's going to be seen directing affairs of the city, even though they're not appointed or elected. I think we've stayed within those boundaries pretty good, but I do think, again, this can help clarify some of the expectations coming in, because I do think for a new member, it's a little confusing about I vote or I don't vote. It's like, no, everybody gets to have a say, and we work by consensus, but we do have appointed officials.
Okay. Yeah, I see it, Zena. Go ahead.
So I think that it would be good to, when we're moving forward. So if a person wants to, again, participate, do all that, that's fantastic. But if you're at a place where you're like, I want to co-chair a meeting, just apply. I think then we should ask people to apply and actually be like, to really do that, come join us. If you're feeling confident enough where you want to co-chair a meeting, that seems like, to me, that's a good sign that you're ready to join us, So maybe moving forward,
yeah, Van.
People who don't want to co-chair or just are here to engage with us, they don't have, again, that responsibility. If you do want to co-chair a meeting, if you do want to do those things, please apply. We'd love to have you.
Okay. Thank you, Zena.
My last thought, which is what I was going to say a while back, the other topic, just for letter C, I would prefer if we put like a month, like annually in July, we will assess, because I just feel like if you put annually, it's never going to happen. Just like, but there's like every year on this month at like the, the first meeting of the year. I don't know. I just feel like then it kind of gives us like, oh, that's right. It's the first meeting of the year. We have to do this, or the first meeting of the fiscal year or something.
Yeah. Good point.
Like, sort of like our budget cycle. We don't just say, oh, every year we'll pass a budget. It's like by this date, you have to pass a budget.
Yeah. Good point.
So, yeah.
Okay. All right. So as I started to say, Jessica and I will massage this based on this conversation and come back, and maybe we'll have a final for the next meeting.
And if you have language suggestions, please send them.
Okay. All right.
And or just ideas in general to incorporate.
Okay. Indigenous Peoples Day proclamation. This was put out last year. The mayor signed. As far as I know, he probably mostly wrote this, but I'm not 100% sure about that. We didn't make any changes to it. Is there any suggestions that we ought to change it, or just go ahead and recommend that they renew it, if you will?
Besides changing the date, of course.
Oh, the date, yes.
I think we should keep that.
Because this year, I wrote it down in the agenda item summary.
It's the 9th.
Thank you. October 9th, 2023.
It would be October 9th.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So it looks like everybody's okay with the mayor or the council and the mayor redoing it, or making the proclamation again.
And the date at the top.
Yeah.
2022 instead of.
Yeah, well, and it'd be a different resolution number too.
23- something or other.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Sounds great.
And then as a reminder to Chris, I believe that will be going to the month before. I don't think we'll have a meeting yet, if I remember correctly. Like, it would have to
Do you have a meeting before the night?
because we meet the
28th.
August 28th.
Yeah.
So you could do it
What?
then.
no, I mean, because it's in October.
August.
Oh, that's right. It's not till October. I was
Oh,
thinking.
never mind. I lied. Sorry. We meet was it the second and
August
fourth
28th.
Monday?
Mostly the second. Try to avoid the fourth.
Okay, we'll be fine because the second Monday is the 9th.
Nice.
Can you not approve more than one proclamation at once?
We can.
But it's better to do it like the month of. So like, it was actually National Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month.
September.
That one is, yeah.
Which you'll do that in
In
August.
We can do that one in September.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm all over the place.
okay. Well,
Too many
stop
windows
do-
open.
Stop doing that.
So this one is coming in October, right?
The indigenous,
Right.
yeah.
October 9th.
And I was behind a little bit. Were there any other changes other than the date and the resolution number?
Nope.
Okay. No.
And then, yeah.
The Hispanic and Latino is the September.
Yeah,
Okay. Then we have I don't know how we did it, but we ended up, at least for this year, approving 2 proclamations in October, and one being the Disability Employment Awareness Month. And again, I took a draft from what the president had done in his proclamation and put this in. So any suggestions of changes or anything? This is the first time you're seeing it.
On that point, can I get back to you after this meeting on some of the suggestions that I have around disability and all that?
Yeah, I think that'd be okay. We actually can talk about it next month. Yeah, we would have time to do it next month as well. Jessica?
One of the things, just as a general thing, it feels a little, what's the word? There are some things that makes it kind of seem like we have it figured out, we just need to do the thing, but I don't know, one of the whereases, whereas studies have found that Americans with disability are especially productive and motivated workers, but they still have a harder time getting jobs, promotions, and fair pay. While that may be a true statement, I think emotionally it's a little off, in the sense that productivity isn't everything, and that, I don't know words right now.
Well, it's okay. If you'd maybe come back with something and we could talk about it in between.
I guess what I mean to say is that disabled people are people, and to measure up their worth by that's what it feels like it's doing, is measuring up their worth by their productivity and motivation. But that might just be me.
I think if I can, there's
Chris. Well, go ahead. And then
Just saying, as a person that literally, I work at the Disability Equity Center, and it's very important as a person with disability and to be able to sit here, and I know I'm only one person, but to represent that population, I think to know that, yeah, we are productive members of society. And that we talked about the fabric of, we are an integral part of making things happen. And so things can change. Again, I'm really going to dive in. I'll get back to you on the wording, but I think it is important for a lot of people to be recognized as, productive society members.
Okay.
So should we table this? No.
Christopher?
I just had 2 things. First being, for Jessica's concern, I think if this were like just Disability Awareness Month, I would feel more what you're saying, but this is specifically Disability Employment Awareness Month. And I do feel like it's pretty fair to say your worth in your employment is measured by productivity. Whether or not that's fair is a larger debate about our economic system, but that is the reality. So I think, I don't necessarily have a problem with it if we're saying, in employment, folks with disabilities are productive. Yet, despite that, they still face, like, that feels fine to me. I think second, and you're going to notice a theme with me with consistency, just it's bothering me a little bit. We refer to the city council differently in each of these three proclamations. Just in the first one, it's the Common Council of the City of Philomath. In the second one, it's the City Council. And then in the third one, it's the Philomath City Council. And so I think if we can just try to have some uniform, what are we?
What would you like it to say?
Philomath
The
City
Philomath
Council.
City Council?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think either City Council or
That's what I
Philomath
have.
City Council. This one, yes. And the other ones, no. I don't really care what it is, but just like, I think it's weird if we're passing three different proclamations that have three different terms
Means
for
for
who's
the
passing.
same.
You know,
I
it's like-
agree with that. I think we should just, I would say Philomath City Council. I always describe, I'm on the Philomath City
Right.
Inclusivity Committee.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
okay.
It'd be like,
represent, again, Philomath.
right, if there's like the Congress of the United States, the U.S. Congress, and the federal government, and those, you know, there's all Congress doing it. But yeah.
Good point.
Anyway, that's a minor thing.
Okay. Any other things? Like I say, we'll bring this back, and I guess Zena's gonna give us some suggested wording. If you guys, any of you have anything else, let us know. Jessica?
Two things. So to get back to the consistency thing, does anyone have any objections to editing those other two proclamations so that it reads the way that this one does?
That's ideal.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Looks like we're good on that. And then the second thing was, I feel like nation needs to be lowercase in the 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth whereas. Was it the fifth? Yeah. Whereas the ADA has transformed lives and inspired over 180 other countries to pass similar laws and brought us closer to realizing the full promise of our nation.
I don't know why the president did it that way.
Especially since in the first,
All right. Okay. We'll bring that back then.
great.
Thank you. Ordinance and procedure barriers. I assume
Yes.
some information got passed out to us.
Are we able to share this with the online folks? I just don't have everyone's email.
I got it by email. You emailed it to me?
Yes, yeah.
I can share my screen.
Okay, thank you. And so this is Councilor Crocker and I, mostly I, would like to apologize.
And I'll forward this document to Bruce.
Not that she wouldn't like to, but it's not as much her fault as my fault. So we met Friday evening and discussed our task. And then I was working on editing it and just got it over to Chris and Jessica and everyone or was it not to Jessica?
Before the meeting
Yeah,
started.
well, it was like at least 25.
Well, let's see what time I got it.
Yes, there you go. Ouch, there's proof.
5:03.
You,
27
27
minutes, everyone. So as I said before the meeting, I want to acknowledge that the irony that we were tasked with making city government more accessible, and we got our recommendations available less than half an hour before the meeting. I recognize that's not walking the talk, and so I own that, and I'm sorry, but that's where we are. So I will go ahead and, I guess, Councilor Crocker, if you're fine, I can just kind of give an overview and please chime in.
Fine. Yeah.
We talked to Chris about this a little bit as well. So some of these are kind of suggestions Chris had that we then ran with. Some of them are things that we came up with. And I want to preface this by saying we are very open to, we are not, these are just suggestions and proposals. If they're horrible, that's fine. If you have ways to make them better, please share. But I think one thing to get us started, I think originally we were looking at specifically the city charter and the city code, and trying to kind of find ways to update language that are finding barriers to access in those documents. We looked through that, and I think there maybe are a few little things we could work on, but it became apparent that probably a better use of our time with a more immediate output would be changing some more operational things in the city. Overall, the city charter is fine. There's not, I mean, by nature of a city charter, it's also pretty vague and broad, and there's not a lot of sort of specifics in there. It's very much just sort of the structure of how we elect people, which we already amended that in like 2 years ago. And it's, you know, how, like, what the city is called and what the boundaries of the city are. And so that's not a huge thing. So we ended up kind of focusing on some barriers to city government accessibility that are more operational. And obviously, you know, operations fall under the city manager, but the city council can direct the city manager. So, and we can make recommendations to the city council. And since these were developed in consultation with Chris, I feel like it's not the council overstepping our operational sort of boundaries. So I broke these into 3 categories. The first is city hall accessibility. The second is municipal court accessibility. And then the third is community engagement accessibility. So to start off with city hall accessibility, proposing to expand or augment the hours of operation at City Hall. Because right now it's open bankers hours 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, which obviously if you have a job working those same hours, it's very hard to get to City Hall. If you have business you need to conduct, you need to take time off of work, something like that, which can be a big barrier if you don't have a job that is flexible like that. So this was a suggestion that we ran with from Chris, of potentially having like once a week or something like that, having City Hall be open later than 5 p.m. And some employees would flex their schedules. I think we want to maybe get some feedback from staff to make sure they're not going to revolt if we do that. And Councilor Crocker wrote in there some ideas of how to go about that, but I think that would be up to Chris of sort of the implementation.
Maybe letting them off early on Friday, so
and that's fine. Yeah.
Are you accepting questions at this?
Absolutely not from anyone but Lori.
Okay. So are there things that the city offers that that aren't online that people need to come in for? So is this a true barrier?
There are a lot of people that are not tech savvy and
I understand
online,
that.
Yeah.
and they will bring their water bill here and they will come
Right.
in and talk before they look at anything online.
But
Yeah, I think outside of somebody who doesn't have or feel comfortable doing things online, which is a whole other category of our population.
I know, I work at Strength
General resident that has access and is comfortable, unless you've got, I mean, it's very few, but I mean, you know, if you're building a house, you need to drop off plans, and you need to drop off plans between 8 and 5 when we're open.
Sure.
You can't slip them in the mailbox. It's a little difficult. So typically you're arranging to do it on your lunch break or some other time. So, you know, there's a few examples of things.
And I would just add that it's like, if you're a person with disabilities who has a care worker, you need like those hours. It would be great if they were just there, more so that people can schedule those kinds of things, or actually come in and talk to a person.
Mm-hmm. And another example would be, like, in order to run for council, you have to actually meet with the city recorder and get paperwork from her and turn that in person.
And so along those lines, the city recorder is not going to be the person who stays till 6:30.
That's to be determined. And again, this may not be full service until 6 or 6:30. It may be that somebody's here and can get a message, can take paperwork, have somebody come back to you. But there's a lot of devil in the details that we haven't got to yet. I think at this point, we're just talking about what would it look like to have a more flexible business hours at City Hall.
And Rose?
Pardon me, Rose? Yeah.
Just personally, I've struggled being part of the Park Advisory Board and being engaged in the Inclusivity Committee, like dropping stuff off or popping in to have a meeting with somebody has been a struggle because I do work 8 to 5. I'm taking my lunch break or I'm leaving work early. Extended hours, I think, would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we're coming up on 7 o'clock when we're normally planned to end our meeting. We did just get this, And I mean, I'm sure we could go on for another half an hour at least in conversation. I suppose we could do that and is there somebody coming here?
I have an appointment at 7:15. I need to be.
So could you just go over I won't ask questions. I won't ask any more questions, but if we could just get.
Does that work for everyone? If I just kind of go over this
go.
and then you all can think about it and we can revisit at the next meeting, does that work?
Okay.
For the people online too?
Could you send it out to us so that we could review it?
Yes.
Cannot, because I don't have
got
anyone's email,
it,
but
and
Jessica
I'll
can.
send it to,
Okay.
to Ruth.
I think that would be preferable.
Yes. Is it okay if I still kind of explain what we're thinking right now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
If you do it.
I will do my best. So the next one, and this is an idea Councilor Crocker had, is, and it kind of goes off of something that Zena was talking about as well, is potentially having like some city hall / city government open houses, and host those as well on Monday nights when city hall would ideally already be open, and it's nights when we have council meetings. Monday night's kind of the night for, the night of nights. And this would allow folks to come into City Hall, meet, their city leadership, get an idea of sort of what the city's been up to, what are ongoing projects. I think another thing is City Hall can not be intimidating in like a scary way, but just like a unfamiliar way to a lot of people. They don't know what's inside the building. They don't know what services they can access. They don't know how to, use the website, things like that. So a chance for people to come in and sort of meet with city staff, meet with city councilors, and have an idea of what services the city offers and what the city's up to. We'll see if anyone shows up, but that was the next thought there. And then the next
survey.
Oh, are we?
Or did you miss?
I think we're missing one page on here.
Court?
Yes, I think that's I don't have that in here, but I'll pull it up over here. Okay.
Oh,
Sorry,
got
folks.
one side.
Yes.
There was two sides.
That's why I was like, yeah, you can do it.
So the next one is municipal court accessibility, and this was another idea from Chris that we kind of ran with. So right now, all of our municipal court proceedings are in person, live, which obviously presents some barriers to accessibility because a lot of municipal court, especially proceedings, last like 5 minutes. It's just sort of a sit in front of the judge. He's like, "Why were you speeding?" And you're like, "I was getting late to work." And he's like, "Well, don't do that again." And then you go home, maybe with a ticket. But point being, that involves a lot for people. They have to take time off of work to come into City Hall. They have to sit and wait for their turn to get called up. They have to find transportation. So if any of those things are a challenge for people, it can present a barrier. Obviously, there may be some times where the judge does need someone in person if it's a longer trial or something like that. But we're proposing to have the city council sort of direct the court to start moving towards allowing remote testimony for some of those more minor issues. I think we'd want to talk to the judge and kind of get some feedback. I don't think he'll be thrilled about it. At least that's the impression I've gotten.
The charter gives the council.
Yes, the council can tell the judge what to do.
Yeah.
Operationally, we can't tell him how to rule on cases. But so that is another suggestion. I think, again, the council would need to work with the judge to kind of put the sideboards on that of like what are cases where he can compel someone to come in person versus what are things where they should have an option to, like, maybe they've already had a chance to be on Zoom and they, played hooky and then he can compel them to come in person or something like that. But anyway, so that's municipal court. And then the third one is public engagement. This is something we've talked about a lot, both with the council and with this committee. And I think it's sort of a shared frustration of the council and our residents. The council wishes that it got more input from more voices in the community, more diverse voices, different perspectives, and the community wishes the council heard them more. So it's great. We all agree on the problems. Now, how do we solve them? I think another thing is we often hear from the same people. There's sort of like 100 people, I feel like, in town that are the people that fill out every survey and come to council meetings and come to events. And that's great. But there's another 5,500 people in this town that also deserve to have their voices heard. So this is something that I think is already in the town halls. We talked about it a bit in our whatever it's called,
Strategic plan. Yep.
But I think having some sort of quarterly town halls, as something that frustrates folks is they don't necessarily understand public comment ahead of time, and they come wanting to discuss with the council or wanting to get feedback or ask a question of the council, and that we are not able to do that in public comment. But that is something, if we have a public noticed, you can have a quorum with the council, but have it be specifically for a town hall, then it can be more of a conversation. And then putting some sideboards on that by having different topics. So I've just put some ideas in there. I'm not attached to that, but something to think about. And I think this committee could help give input on topics and everything like that. Next, and I know, we're going to roll our eyes at a survey, but this was some feedback that we got from our most recent survey on ARPA allocations. I thought that was really helpful in making decisions. I know there was some feedback about people wished there was more engagement, although I felt like the engagement was pretty decent for that one. So just sort of as we work on our next strategic planning process, kind of doing just a really broad-based survey. It's not specifically about infrastructure, it's not specifically about ARPA, it's not specifically about anything like that. It's just sort of like, what are your main concerns and ideas for the city? And then allowing
without
people
any fill-in.
Right. I mean, I think we could give some, like, you can rank, and then there's a section at the bottom for like, what other ideas do you have? Just because that, as a counselor, was super helpful for me on that last survey. The ideas people had, I was like, you know what, you're right. And then the last one that ties us all together is door knocking and tabling. See, now Lori's laughing at me.
Your door knocking.
It works is the thing. And because this came from part of it, I always have a problem with elected officials who come knocking on your door when they need to get reelected and then never talk to you the rest of their term.
Chamber luncheon.
Yeah. Hey, listen. So that's part of then. Once we have some town halls scheduled, we have a survey developed, then councilors, committee members can kind of divide up some turf and just go out to community events and to their neighborhoods and talk to neighbors, knock on doors, go to things like, as it says in here, music in the park, trunk or treat, chili cook-off, school registration.
Yeah.
Go to where the people already are. Don't try to get them to come to us all the time.
That's how I feel about town halls.
Yes. I think it's important to try to do both, but I think this will probably, and I think, so then part of what we do when we go out into the community is tell them when the town halls are, where they are, because I think that's honestly a big thing, is just a lot of people don't know what's going on, and then invite them to take the survey if it's online. And also just ask them, like, what are your main concerns or ideas or thoughts about Philomath right now? And then record those, and then that'll be compiled into the broad project. So this is obviously an expansive sort of idea, but I think it checks a lot of the boxes that the council and this committee have been talking about, where I think we need to stop waiting for people to come to us, and we need to kind of get out there, but we need to do it in a structured way, a way where we can point people, like, if they have something, they can, like they want to talk about homelessness, like, that's great. We have a town hall on that coming up in October. Here's the date and time. Hope to see you there. Yeah. Or they want to give suggestions like, oh, that's great. We have a survey going on right now. Like, here's a link, blah, blah, blah. So those are the suggestions that we came up with. I will not be accepting questions at this time per Van's recommendation, but please, Jessica will send this out, and then please think it over. If you have any thoughts or questions, you can hit me up in the meantime, and then we can talk about it again as a group at our next meeting. Yeah. I will not be taking questions at this time.
You seem like a good start.
Okay.
Good job. Good job, you two. It was not a question, it was a compliment.
Okay.
But if you don't want it, it's okay.
No, that's, I'll take it. That's
Thank you for the work you did. And yeah, we'll put it on the agenda for next meeting and come with your ideas and thoughts. And as Christopher said, if you have any thoughts, you feel free to give him a call. Next meeting is August 22nd, also at 5:30. We have talked some time ago about the DEI training, educational opportunities, and actually it was mentioned here even this evening in potentially having I can't remember which one, what it was about. Oh, it was about, oh yes, Indigenous Peoples. Anyway, and then we'll have Black African, in our annual calendar, we have for next spring, Black and African American Heritage Month. We discussed an activity, or not discussed, we proposed an activity. It was something that Zena and I had discussed when we suggested it to the committee, and we felt like we should start talking about that as well, even though it's maybe 6 months away or whatever it is. 4 or 5.
I definitely would like to chair that meeting whenever that comes up.
All right. Okay. Anything else to come before the body? Then we're adjourned.
I'm not sure I understand.
What didn't you understand?
Siri doesn't understand what you're saying.
Siri is now a member of the
Siri is
committee.
confused about what Ben is saying.
That was a great ending. Have a good night, you guys.
Thank you.